Good morning. This is Jeannie Miller, the Distance Education Coordinator, and we would like to welcome you to our first webinar series, Distance Education Tech Talk. These monthly webinars are designed to provide Cypress College distance education faculty relevant news, information, tips, tricks, any demonstration of new tools. We just want to engage you and all of the great resources we have of the distance education faculty at Cypress College. And we hope that you will join in and share best practices in the future. So as you see, join in with some of these webinars. We hope that you'll be thinking about what you could share with our community in the future. And as always, you will be welcome, and we'll be letting you know a little bit more about the future sessions next year. But we do have 2 more sessions coming up, and we hope that in April and May, about rubrics and about the Grade Center. We hope you can join us then. Today's session is an especially timely one. As you have read, or hopefully you will read, hint, hint, in the new distance education plan that I just sent out earlier this week, the Association of Community Colleges and Junior Colleges, the ACCJC, sorry, mouthful this morning, defines regular and substantive interaction between students as a critical part of distance education. A free tool that's provided to us by the State Chancellor's Office is, as you've signed in and you know, CCC Confer. It really help our interaction with our students, the student and instructor interaction. Rebecca Gomez, a professor in the Health Information Technology Department here at Cypress and our Cypress College Staff Development Quarter, is our guest presenter today. She has been using CCC Confer with her students for over 5 years. She will be demonstrating the use of CCC Confer, including a variety of tips for a smooth session. Thank you for being with us today, Rebecca.
Okay, good morning. Okay, what we're going to do, we have a few people in the classroom, and I understand we have one person joining us remotely. So what we're going to do is we kind of already logged in, and those of you have some instructions, and we're going to do this. Part of this is though we are setting it up for our students, and we're going to kind of go back and forth. Since we're already logged in, what I'm going to do is just show you how to, I should have looked at this drive already. But what's going to happen is that we are going to load up a PowerPoint. Okay, so what's going to happen is that this little folder here, and you put your cursor on almost anything, and you're going to see that it's going to tell you what it is. So if you forget what something is, you can just roll your cursor right over it, just like a lot of other applications. Now, when you do that and you want to load a PowerPoint, it's going to ask you. Now we have a blank screen here. This white is like our whiteboard. Okay. Yeah. Let's adjust the light. Hold on one second.
Rebecca, is there a way we can share the application, the CCC Confer? I don't think Ray can see anything. I don't know if we can do that.
I don't know that we can share it here, but I'll show you a couple things in just a minute.
Okay. So okay. Ray, just kind of hold on there.
Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't know anybody was going to join us remotely because I had wanted people to email me so I could give them a little different directions. But so we could either do after the current screen, which sometimes you might want to do if you're setting it up. And you know, like if we were to log in early, students logging in early, you don't want them to start asking you questions or do something while you're doing all your setup, because there's a lot of steps to your setup and you don't want to miss a step. So we could just say after the current screen. So what will happen is that it will prompt you. Okay, and again, just go with the default. And what will happen is it will actually bring up CCC Confer, PowerPoint, and then it will just load the PowerPoint in the background. Okay, and so that public screen is still blank, but you'll see up here you've got screen 1 to 10. If you can see that up there. And then when you do that, so just like you would in a classroom, when you're going to load the PowerPoint, you're just going to load it, but you're just going to load it on the screen. Okay, so it's pretty simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of jump back and forth between the presentation and some of the tools that we have. So what we're going to cover today, this is what we would just do in the classroom, right? We just bring up a PowerPoint or whatever you're demonstrating. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose, which Jeannie kind of already did already. We'll talk a little bit about why we might use CCC Confer, because in talking with a lot of other people, they use it for different things. So we'll talk about how we might use it. We'll talk about how to get started. We'll talk about, some of you kind of already did a little bit of the login and things like that. So we'll talk about how to get started, how to set up an account. Okay, it's super simple. It will take you maybe, depending on how fast you type, probably a minute, maybe two, if you're a slow typer, okay, or inaccurate. You might have to do it again. We'll talk about the different kinds of meetings that you might have, okay. We'll talk about whether it's a conference call, a webinar, a meet and confer, whatever it is. And then we'll talk a little bit about directions for participants, and I have a little handout that I've used, and it's actually a handout from class, one of my classes at the beginning of this semester. So you'll see how I actually wrote it, and I'm more than happy to share it. If you want a copy of it, I can give it to you electronically. And I've used this handout for several semesters. I tweak it a little bit every semester if need be. And then we'll talk a little bit about the directions for the moderator, meaning you, okay, the teacher, on meeting day. In other words, some of the things that we're going to do here, we're actually going to kind of walk through kind of the setup. And then we'll talk about a bunch of the different tools that you will see there. And then we'll have hopefully a little bit of time for questions. So hopefully that will at least give you a good overview. Okay. So why are we going to use CCC Confer? Okay. You can do it for online instruction. In other words, that's how you're going to deliver your class. Okay. Whether it be a lecture format, question and answer, however it is, or you can, just like you would in a lecture class. Okay, you can load your PowerPoint and then go from there. Now, I have found just in my teaching, and unfortunately, I've had some really lengthy classes that in our program we teach some sections of the class online and some we teach in the classroom. So there are we have students from all over Southern California. So those students that live further away will rather do the online version rather than having to drive to class. So it is a little bit more effort on your part, and I will tell you that the one person we cannot forget about is our captioner. Every once in a while, I forget about my captioner because I'm just rolling along, and all of a sudden I'll go, uh-oh, captioner, do we need a break? And the captioner will give me a little happy face or something and tell me, yes, please. Because they're really hustling away trying to keep up with us as well. So that's something you also have to consider, especially if you're doing closed caption, which you should be doing. You could use it for an orientation to an online class. How I started doing that orientation was a number of years ago. I started teaching an online medical terminology class, strictly online. But what happened was I just about died the first 2 weeks of the semester because students weren't reading the directions. They weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. They would just email me questions, things that were obviously on the syllabus. We all have that happen even in in-person classes, right? That students have lots of questions. So what I did was I set up a mandatory orientation for those students. And so I went through the whole setup of everything that was in the syllabus, everything that I normally would do just in a classroom orientation, I did it online. Okay. And I allowed time for questions. And those medical terminology classes, most semesters, this is the first semester I've only had one online medical terminology class. Usually I have two, and they're in excess of 45 students. So when you get 45 times 2 students, you're just asking for chaos. And usually that's what I would get. So I had to do a lot with the instructions and things, and a lot of things ahead of time, trying to minimize the confusion. Some semesters I'm really successful, other semesters I'm not so successful. So you might use CCC Confer for just an orientation to an online class. Or you might even do it as an add-on to an in-person class or a hybrid class or something. I won't say in-person, but a hybrid class. Just to place, and I always record my sessions, especially the orientation, and you'll see why when I give you a handout in a little bit. But what it does is it also gives the students a place to go back and listen to, especially when you record it. And you'll notice that just before we got started, there was a little box here that says start recording, yes or no. Jeannie, did we do the phone bridge?
I did.
Oh, excellent. And so what you'll see is in this way down in the bottom corner here, you see these other little tools. This is kind of what's going on right now. And Jeannie and I were laughing about this yesterday. You see this little square box with the two little red circles. It looks like a reel-to-reel recorder. And I was saying to Jeannie yesterday, our students probably wouldn't know what that was. We would, because we're old enough to know that that's a reel-to-reel. But the other thing that you can do is you could temporarily stop it just by Jeannie, can you do that? Can you just click on that button there and just? Oh, you can't. Oh, I thought you were logged in. Okay, once you're logged in as a participant. Okay, just put your cursor on that little pause button there. Who's doing it?
I clicked it, but you can't see it.
Oh, okay. That's because are you signed in as
He's the moderator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you should be able to see it. Not sure why you're not seeing it.
I can see it on my screen. On her screen. Maybe let me do it on this screen, then you can see it.
Yeah, it's probably that one. Okay. So, for instance, you'll see that come up, and we can cancel it. I just want to show the window. So, if you're going to go on a break, you take a 15-minute break, pause the recording, because otherwise you have a bunch of dead air. And then your students, if they need to go back and listen, they got to listen to all the dead air, and that's not too fun. You can do it for tutoring. Okay, so if you wanted to, if you have an online class and maybe students are having difficulty with a particular, you could, set up a 5 or 10 minute little webinar session. Or, and again, we'll talk about what kind of meetings that you'll set up. Record them, and the students can go back in, okay, because you've archived them, okay. If you don't record them, they're not going to be archived. So that recording part is really, really important, okay. You could do it for follow-up, okay. I always, in that medical terminology class, I always say that orientation is mandatory, but I reserve the right to have to set up another session at some point during the semester that they would have to attend. Okay, and that might be a situation where maybe you're preparing for the final exam, and they have lots of questions about how the final is going to work because it's online. Okay, some instructors, depending on what they do, they may require the students to come in for the final. They may have them take it online, but within a certain window or whatever it is. And certain teachers, just like everything else, we all do things a little bit differently. So that follow-up might be something like how to prepare for the final exam. Okay. So I'm sorry.
What have you found is the best times? When you set up those required times for these people that are all online, that's always an issue.
Okay. Well, thanks for that question. Normally what it's in this class schedule. Actually, when they sign up, they usually say, an orientation will take place on Tuesday, January 16th at 6:30. I usually do them in the evening because a lot of my students work. A lot of the students that get into the health sciences are working. And so it's right in the class schedule. So before they sign up, they know that this is a requirement. Now, you're always going to run into the students and say, I have a class on Tuesday night. I can't attend. What do I do? Then they go back and listen to the recording. But my students are required that if they miss the orientation, the live orientation, they're required to listen to it and then email me and let me know that they listened to it. That's just my check. And at the end of my syllabus, especially on my online class, I have a whole list of tasks that they need to do. Attend the online orientation, read the syllabus, read the frequently asked questions. There's about 5 or 6 things. So that's just kind of my checklist for them, again, to get a good start in an online class. Some teachers use it for office hours. Okay. And maybe their office hours a combination of office hours and some tutoring. Okay. Cindy Shroud is somebody that uses CCC Confer for what she calls office hours, but they're really little mini tutoring sessions. And so you have a whole variety of things. Now, the one thing that we're kind of focusing on our students here, but what if you wanted to collaborate with another faculty member? Okay. You could set up a conference call through CCC Confer and work on your stuff remotely. What about summertime? We want to all drag ourselves in here, during the summer when, we were just talking about where everybody lives. Okay, we don't all live 5 minutes from campus where it's easy to pop over here and catch up with one another. So this might be another option, okay, where you could share a PowerPoint and then maybe say, okay, well, let's revise this or let's do this or let's do that. That's certainly some options, okay. So you've got all kinds of different things that you could do. It's just, limited probably only by your imagination as to what you could do or not do, okay. Now, we can go in and set up an account, okay, and how we're going to do that is you're actually going to get on CCC Confer. You can just open up the browser. I'd open up Firefox. I wouldn't open up Explorer. One thing I think that if you teach online, and Jeannie can probably echo way more strongly than I could, is that Blackboard and Internet Explorer, they don't seem to play well in the sandbox. So we have highly recommended that our students use Firefox. So we'll go ahead with that. And so what I can do, if I was demonstrating something, you see this little globe up here? I can start a web tour. Okay, and this is the screen that you saw when you logged in, okay? I just went up here to the web tour, okay? You're gonna, what I want you to do is minimize this window and actually log in and go to Firefox. No, you don't. That's what I said, just minimize it. Yeah, because we're doing it on the screen. Just minimize this and actually log in to CCC Confer. Just minimize the whole thing, yeah.
Okay, so I should then
Yeah.
miss something.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we're actually going to log in.
You need to go to Firefox.
Yeah. Okay. And then www.ccc4cconfer.org. Are you there? Okay, that's all right. Okay.
No, I can share over here.
Okay, just click on one of those. Just click on one of the windows. Okay, now just get a new tab. Go on. Okay, now type in
All right, now I need to
www. Okay, these aren't coming up, so just click on that. That right at the very top. Yeah. Okay, now where it says present your faculty sign up, you see that in the white lettering up there? Yeah, go for it. We're going to sign you up right now.
Okay, presenter, faculty, login, right?
Okay, right now. Right here. Sign. Okay, Ray, are you out there? Are you with us? Ray? Ray, did you go eat breakfast on us?
Yeah, I'm here.
And Suzanne is on now also.
Oh, okay.
I'm at the registration center here.
Okay, so what you should do is just go to Firefox and then type in CCC Confer, go to that website, and you should see what you're seeing on the screen. But you're going to see the presenter faculty, and you're going to click on presenter faculty sign up. Okay, and you're going to get this window. Okay, when you register, make sure that I always put in my full name where it says my Confer login name so that the students can see that it is you, okay, because that's how you're going to show up. See, when you log in over here, you can see that Jessica signed in as a moderator, Jeannie signed in as a moderator. I actually didn't sign in, otherwise she would see capital R, Rebecca, capital G for Gomez, and it just looks like all one word. But the students, because what if you have the same name as a student? Okay, even though moderator's behind your name, students get confused. Okay, so this is the sign up screen. So you could sign up right now. If you choose not to do it now, that's okay too, but I wanted you to see the screen. And then when you're all finished, you're just going to click on register.
Can you change your screen name later if you don't have that?
You know, I don't know that. I don't know that. When I did it the first time, I just did it the way that I thought I wanted it to show up. So, but that's a good question. Maybe we should find that out. Okay. So you could go in and you could just sign in from here. I mean, start an account. Okay. I'm just going to put that down on the screen. Okay, so anybody have any questions about the registration process? Pretty simple, huh?
So you register one time and then...
You register one time and then you have an account.
Okay.
So next time you go in, and we'll log back in. We're going to do it again right now. So, because you logged in as a participant for this workshop. But when you actually have an account, you're going to log in as a co-presenter. Okay. So once you have your sign-in, okay, we're just going to go see, now we go to this other button that says Presenter Faculty Login. Okay, and if I clicked on that, okay, my login name is R. Gomez, and then I'm going to put in my password, and then I'm going to log in. Okay. I don't have any meeting scheduled for today because Jeannie was the moderator or presenter. Okay. But if you have meeting scheduled, it's going to pop right up there. Okay. It's going to pop where it says meeting scheduled for today. Okay. Now the other thing that you can do is click on My Meetings, and you can see that I have a bunch of meetings hanging out there. Okay. These are some of my older classes. Okay, and you'll actually see this second one on 124. Okay, that was my orientation. Now, the other thing that you want to do is when you set up your meetings, and we'll set one up in a minute, is you want to be sure that it has enough information that people are going to be able to find it, especially students. Okay. So I always put Rebecca Gomez, Health Science. That's what it defaults to. And then you want to put in your class name. So I put in Survey of Medical Terminology Online because it's easy for students to see that and to find it. Okay. I was in charge of the strategic conversations for the campus this year, or for the district this year. So I set up a facilitator training, and I used CCC Confer because I was dealing with people from the Anaheim campus as well as Fullerton. And not everybody wanted to come physically here. So I said, okay, well, let's do it CCC Confer. Okay. And this is where your students are going to go back and do the archive, too. Okay, so if they missed that orientation, they're going to go in, and I'll show you how to do that. We're seeing it from the moderator's view, though. Okay? Where am I here? Oh, okay. We did the login. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this screen here. Well, let's go back to the home page. Okay. Notice all these tabs up at the top. Okay. There's meetings, training center, products, archive support, contact us. You'll also see some things on the left side that say news, training, support. All of these tabs, and to be honest, I use this a lot. And when I looked at this a couple weeks ago when we first started talking about doing this training, and then I went on yesterday just to verify a couple of things that I was going to talk about, and they've had something new. So they're constantly updating the system. The thing that was new that I found was that when you look at your meetings, there's also a place, it says email. I go, I wonder what that is. So I clicked on email, and what happened is that it sent me the emails, again, the previous confirmations that I got once I set it up. Oh, what I did forget to say, once you set up a meeting, you do get an email confirmation. And you get one for the participants and one for you as the moderator. So I clicked on that, email me. I'm thinking, well, hopefully I just didn't email everybody that signed up or whatever. But what happened is they resent the email confirmation. So sometimes if you set something up a month ahead of time and you go, oh, I'll go back and I'll yank that out of my email, and then you can't remember what day you did and you're trying to go through your email, this was a great tool. So here it was. And what it does is give sort of some mini directions to you, the moderator, and to the participants. But all these things are super helpful, and that was something that I hadn't seen before. Now, one of the things that you want to do is you want to be sure that you give your participants directions. Now, these are the directions from my orientation session in the first part of this semester. Okay, and I'm just going to pull this out of there. So when you are setting things up, okay, again, you want to, well, you know what, let's hold off on this for just a minute. Let me finish what I'm doing here. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The one thing that is in here is you could do training here. So maybe you don't have a need for CCC Confer this semester because we're already midway through this semester. But you think, well, how can I set something up for the fall? But then you're going to go, oh, I don't remember how to do this, that, or the other. And quite frankly, they update things constantly. So what you thought might have been a really good idea, it's probably even been improved by these folks. So you could go in and you could do the self-paced training, the online training. There's demo rooms, which is really good. They always have demo rooms available. Okay, and what they are, they're just like a classroom. Okay, but maybe you're going to go in and practice a presentation and you get familiar with the equipment. That's exactly what these practice rooms are for. So you could go in there and play around with all the tools, make sure you know where things are, because there's nothing worse than going, uh-oh, where'd that tool go when you're right in the middle of class, right? So you can go into those demo rooms. So they call them practice rooms. And then they'll give you some different topics, overview of CCC Confer, capture the meeting content of what we talked about a little bit earlier. Okay, so all these tabs up here, You can register for live training. Okay. My live training was by the seat of my pants. Okay. Because when I first started, they didn't have the live training where you could just go and sign up. It was a little bit different back then. And so there were a couple of my colleagues in my department that used it before, so we kind of worked together to kind of figure out things. But you can do the recorded training. In other words, they are using their own tools here. And you can see that, again, it tells you a lot of different things that you can do. 2 months for students, 2 months for teachers, basic training. You could do self-paced training, what's new. I don't even think they can probably keep up with themselves because they do a lot of upgrades and changes to things. Again, the demo room. Now, this little features tells you a lot of different things. So it's kind of like their frequently asked questions, and they have little handouts on all of these different issues. So, again, you can't hurt anything, and I would really encourage you to kind of explore all of these different options. Okay. The support tab. Okay. You can contact client services. They're only there from 8 to 4. So if you teach an afternoon class or an evening class, that's really important to go into your demo rooms and because if they're not available, you don't really have support. So that's a bit of a drawback. Again, the features are going to show you the things we just looked at in that other tab. Frequently asked questions. The folks over in client services, they're wonderful. They're really great. They are really timely in their responses. If there's something you just can't find or you have a question about, they're more than happy to help you. And what was really nice, I talked to these folks on the phone for 5 years, and I went to the online teaching conference last summer and actually got to see them face to face. So they're really great. Okay. Okay. So we got to keep moving here because we were running out of time here. Okay. Again, we talked about the meeting selection a little bit already. The name of your meeting. Make sure it's something that the students are going to recognize, or your colleagues if you're setting up, kind of a work session. The student accessibility. When you set up that meeting, there is an option for you to closed caption it. Okay, you do want to click on that little box. Okay, because that will allow us to get a captioner for that particular session. Okay, and you do see that they are advertising for the online teaching conference again this year already. And that captioner, don't forget to give them a break every once in a while. Okay, the meeting selection. Okay, again you'll see down here. That's where they're going to do the login. This is also where they'll view the archives. Okay, so the student that missed the session, that orientation, like I mentioned a minute ago, they can go in and they can view the archives. The directions to participants. Okay, that was what I handed you just a moment ago. Obviously, you want to keep it simple. We used to do screenshots and all sorts of stuff, and the directions were longer than the class practically. So what we did is we got it down to about a page. And so it tells them how to sign in, how to go to the website, disable their pop-up blocker software, go to the login. It just tells them everything that they need to know. And then I actually capture the name of the meeting, whatever I did, and then put it in that box. And then they just click on the Go button. Okay. Now, the one thing that we do need them to do is to make sure that they test their computer for readiness. And I think you probably saw that on a couple of different places. So if we were going to do the login. Okay, see, this is where you find your class here, and you just click on the Go, and it's super simple. Okay. And you actually get to see what other people are doing. So there's a lot of, it's very, very well used. Okay. One thing, if you'll notice on number 8 on the handout, it says fill out the form with your name, email address, and username with your first and last name. So I have John underlined students, okay? And that's one thing that I ask my students to do. That's not the way that the directions are on CCC Confer. So that does present a little bit of a problem because sometimes if you lose students or you need to use it for your attendance, then you have their first and their last name because everybody signs in on, if there's 3 Johns in your class, you know if it's John 1, John 2, John 3.
Tell me where the computer readiness, you want me to show
Oh,
me
yeah,
real quick?
yeah.
Okay. Go back here to technical. And then here, test your computer.
Yeah, and there's a couple of buttons that you'll see in different places.
It's on the participant
Yeah.
letter also.
Yeah, it's on the participant letter. And what it is, and you have to tell students, please log in a little bit early so that they can test their computer readiness and be ready to go. Because it does have to download a little tiny piece of software that, depending on the speed of their computer and all sorts of stuff, it might take 5 to 7 minutes. So you don't want them logging in at 10 a.m. for a 10 o'clock class and then be struggling. Because guess what? They're going, what does all these windows mean? Do I have to run it? Do I have to do this? Do I have to do that? So I usually tell my students, log in. You can log in a couple of days ahead just to test your computer readiness, and then you're good to go once you do it. Okay. You do want to keep the directions simple. Okay, and like I said, we used to do a whole big handout, and I think it was more confusing. So we kind of reduced it to that, and you'll see in number 6 is the device will do this check at least 30 minutes prior to the call, or you can even do it a few days prior. On the back of this same handout, I have the archive instructions. So again, for those students that missed that orientation, this tells them how to log in. And you'll see I actually have a paragraph in there if you are not on the call, blah, blah, blah. And that's, again, specific to my class. That they have to do the orientation before they begin any of the classwork because they're going to mess it all up in that online class. Again, I just give this to you as an example. You want to make it simple. In my classes, for this particular class, for the online medical terminology, I have a folder in course information that says webinar orientation. So in that folder has these directions. It has the PowerPoint that I go over when I do the orientation. So everything, I just make it easy. They can just find it in one folder. So I think that tends to help. The directions for the moderator on meeting day, I already showed you how to load the PowerPoint. I have found that there is probably about a maximum of about 115 slides that it will take, give or take. If you have graphics, that will take up a lot more of the memory, so you might not be able to. So what I do sometimes is if I have a pretty heavy PowerPoint presentation, I tend to load it in chapters, and that way I can delete. If I cover something and then at the break I'll delete something if I need to add something. So in other words, if I'm out of room, I'll delete the earlier stuff that I already talked about. You do want to demonstrate the tools for the participants. Okay, so these little things here, this little raising of the hand, you'll see you as the teacher. If you tend to walk around the room and you're looking at the students, and I teach hybrid too, where some of the students want to be in the classroom, some want to be online. Sometimes you're not always looking at the screen, so that helps you, that flashing. It'll tell you who's raising their hand so you can acknowledge them. Okay, and obviously you want them to put in their real name. You don't want to have them put in Cute Susie, because that's who you're going to call on if Cute Susie raises their hand. But if they raise their hand and you answer the question as you're lecturing, they can just put their hand down. This is one of my favorites, the little happy face. You can see that there is a little confused type of button. I usually get some applause at the end of class. Okay, so you can see that people will applaud. If they don't like something, sometimes you'll get that disapproval. But if you're asking questions, say, well, how many people have ever served on jury duty? Because like Teach Legal, I ask that question, okay, as part of my lecture. They're going to say yes, or they might say no. Okay, so you can use that for polling. Okay, I also use this as a sound check. When I first log on and I want to make sure everybody hears me, I usually do a sound check, and that's how I do my sound check, is they'll go ahead and give me a yes or a no. If they step away from the presentation, okay, or you step away is even more important. Like when you're on a break, it's just like in the classroom. You know, you take a break and you're trying to, maybe look at attendance or do something, and students start walking up to you. You don't want to give the students that you're still online when you've gone away and gotten a quick cup of coffee to come back and teach, and this tells them you're not there. So they ask you a question or anything, they know that you're away. Okay, and you can also use. Jeannie just highlighted the application sharing. So if you're trying to demonstrate a piece of software.
Okay, I was trying to get rid of my little mark.
Okay.
That's the one thing when you ask them for it, you have to clear it, or they can't clear it.
That's the other thing too. You as a moderator can clear it, and they can clear it.
Oh,
Student can't clear it for themselves. No, you can clear it. You as a
moderator.
Yeah, you can do that. Don't forget to, once you demonstrate everything. Now, sometimes they get a little overzealous, and I actually had this happen. I was actually shocked. I've never had this happen before, but I had it happen to me this semester where students figured out they could use the drawing tools, and they just started drawing and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and it was really kind of irritating. It's like, come on, seriously? But they did that. So you don't want to have them do that. Be sure that you click the record, okay, that we showed you earlier so that you can archive it. And the last thing I would tell you is patience and preparation for that first session. Because if they didn't do what you asked them to do by logging in early or doing other things, it's going to disrupt your whole session for the first half an hour. So try to be as patient as possible, but really try to encourage them to do all that stuff ahead of time. The other thing that you might see here is this little pointer, just like you would in a classroom. If you wanted to point to something, you can do that, and just again, you're just like you're in a classroom. Okay, so you've got a lot of different tools that you can use as well as the students can use. So I'm going to come back in the classroom. The other thing that you want to pay attention to is that you've got these little, you've got some telephones and you've got speakers. Those little speakers are going to be the death of you. Let me tell you that right now. You need to make sure that the students turn their speakers off on their computer. Because what you do is you start getting echoing. And it's really, you will get a headache. Honestly, you will get a headache because there will be so much extra noise. You can mute everybody if you wish, okay, but allow them to unmute their phone. So if you can mute everybody, because you got, especially when your students are at home, the dog's barking, a fire engine's going by, or you have both, because my dog will howl at the fire engines, and it just makes for chaos. Just be aware of that. But the students can unmute their own phone. So if they have a question, you call on them. They forget to unmute their own phone, so you have to unmute your phone and then ask your question. So that way you can hear them and you can interact with them.
How do you mute everyone?
It's star 96, and again, you get that on your direction. When you get your confirmation, okay, it will remind you. It will give you the passcode. It will give you the call-in number. They just added a new feature. Okay, that was new. A star 39 to silence the entry and exit tones. You know how everybody signed on and you kind of hear the dinging, it drives you crazy. That's really nice. But they give you just a short little list of all the faculty conference features. So you can mute or unmute your participants. If you ask your participants to physically respond to you as part of the roll call, then you can unmute everyone. Okay, but as they unmute and mute, then you get all those tones. So now that we can mute those, that's great. It kind of gets rid of some of that extra stuff. So, but that's what you'll get. And I can just, I can pass these around. And also, this gives you the student information as well. So you can take a look at those documents. Again, just to kind of get you going.
Comes from
CCC Confer. When you set up your meetings, you're going to get an email that's going to tell you what the codes are, the passcodes are for the phone. The one thing that we kind of run into is the voice versus the phone versus the speakers. Okay, if the students want to use a headset, and you will have to tell them, if you want to do this remotely, you're going to have to get a headset, okay, with a microphone as well as the hearing apparatus, because you want them to be able to participate. So you have to be very clear that they need that microphone as well. Okay.
And then when they do it, they can check.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to do.
I could do it for you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. And you can see this.
In the audience.
Oh, now I can't see it.
Okay. In the audience. Yeah, go up. That one. There you go.
Okay, so here, what the students will have to do is they will have to go in and set up their audio setup wizard. And again, it just takes a few moments, but they have to do this. Because otherwise, I can't hear you, I can't participate. Well, they've got to do this. So that might be part of your instructions to them. I do have some other instructions. The instruction that I just kind of passed out to you was just to get them on the call.
And just to clarify, that's if they choose not to use the phone if they want to.
Correct. Yes, thank you for asking that
That's
question.
an option, it's not mandatory.
No, it is not. However, okay, here's the deal. That's what I was saying. The voice versus phone versus speakers. If they're on the telephone, and this is what I find, a lot of students don't have a landline anymore, so they want to use their cell phone. Okay, well that's all well and good, but or some say I can't use the phone because I want to use my minutes. Okay, well then you have to purchase a speaker, a headset, okay, with the microphone. But if they use the telephone, then you need to be sure that they turn off the speakers, because what's happening is as the sound is going through their computer, it's echoing back through the phone, and you have all kinds of reverberation. That's something that you need to do. The other thing that is good that I probably should use more is the timer. Okay, so if you wanted to be sure that you ended on time, or you wanted to be sure that you took a break, you can set up the timer. Okay. Again, just another tool for you. We talked about using the hands to acknowledge. The other thing that Jessica's been monitoring the chat box. Okay, is that students can type a question into the chat box. Sometimes it's hard if you're not sitting directly in front of the computer. If you're walking around the classroom and you're facing your students, you're not facing the screen necessarily, you might miss something. And if there's a lot of questions, they go out of the screen. So it's kind of nice if you do have somebody kind of monitoring the chat box. Using the polling, you can share the desktop, okay, to demonstrate.
Could you show a little difference between sharing it? What I noticed on your web tour here is that there's a new screen. And so I can, as a participant, I can look at your screen on your web tour, and I can see your PowerPoint at the same time, which is really great.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just do the sharing the desktop, then the student's limited to only by what you're showing them.
Yeah. So what you might want to do, and this is what we do, so we teach coding, okay, we're demonstrating the software, so that's when we would do application sharing, okay. So you can get in there and do that. And unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time, but I just want to mention that you could go in. That's why I said sharing the desktop. That you can go in and they can kind of page through and do certain things too. But you don't want to forget to archive. I think I've said that like 9 times already, because that archiving is so important. if students want to go back and listen to something. You know, I've already started getting questions about the final. Well, I talk about the final during the orientation. So I said, go back and look at your notes, but I'm going to be sending out more stuff. So I did talk about the final at orientation. So they could even go back and listen to that archive of that orientation session. So there's lots of tools out there. You can't hurt anything. You just have to experiment with different things. So, you know, there's a lot we probably could talk about and get into, but we're really running short on time. So why don't we just go ahead and open it up for questions that we might have. And again, here's my contact information. Client services, again, they're only open between 8 and 4, Monday through Friday. You know, there's their extensions. Every single one of them I've dealt with, E.T., Donna, everybody has been wonderful. Okay, if you have a question, and like I said, I finally met them face-to-face last summer. There was a conference that they asked probably about 12 of us throughout California to talk and do presentations. We spent a whole day doing how we all use it, and it was great. I mean, there was one teacher from San Diego who taught music, and so she would actually upload little pieces of music and have the students identify the type of music it was and who the composer was. It was fantastic. There's another gentleman that uses a tablet, and he's a math teacher. Okay, well that's perfect because he can actually show how he's solving the problems. Okay, so that was just fascinating to go in and take a look and see how different people are using it. So it's only really limited by your imagination. Okay.
You know, I might add that they're at CCC Confer for your first couple of sessions. If you're a little uncomfortable, you can contact E.T. or Donna, and they will actually log into your session for the first 10 or 15 minutes and help you answer any student's questions, or if you want to get started, kind of help them. So they offer that, too, in the live training, which is really great if you're uncomfortable at the beginning.
Yeah, and that's a good resource to have. But I would really encourage you to use those demo rooms and play. You can't hurt anything. You know, and sometimes I have set up just a teach and confer just to go in and play around. Sometimes I don't use the demo rooms. I actually set up a session. I don't archive it because it's only for my use and my own kind of playing around. But even these little things down here, those little icons down at the bottom, the little pointers, okay, remember I clicked on that pointer earlier? You could even, you know, your highlighters could be different. You know, that's something new they've added in the past several months. I mean, it's just kind of cutesy, but, you know, if you're trying to emphasize a point, or this is something I want you students to remember, or a chart I want you to know, or whatever you have in your PowerPoint, you can go back and, you know, highlight it. Okay.
Susanna and Ray, did you guys have any questions?
Well, no, I think you responded to the one I had about the handout materials. I'll go ahead and send you an email to remind you to send those to me.
Okay. I told them I would send them I'd scan it and send yours. And Susanna, how are you doing? Maybe she's not on.
She's fine.
She's fine. Okay, good. Good, I'm glad you're fine.
See, we ask the question, but they respond here. You know, because we're looking at the phone like the, you know, because we're waiting for that verbal, and then they're responding up here. So, I don't know if you have any other questions, or was this enough information to get you started, or was enough information to confuse you?
You guys, that live training is great, and you can do that as many times as you want. You do it once, and then you go back, and you can look at the online, but you can ask them questions, you know, as they go along, and that's really great. Well, we are running out of time, and I want to thank everyone for joining so much, and a special thank you to our presenter, Rebecca, and I think instead of clapping, I think we should all give her applause on the CCC Confer. Yay!
Well, like I said, you can't really mess anything up. You just have to kind of play around with it. And they've added different things since I started doing this. And if I'm not on for a while, like I don't do as many online classes as I used to. And so everyone's going, what's that icon for? Like I said, those little pointer things were new. I hadn't seen those before. So they're always doing something. So even if you become really familiar with it, you might look at it a couple months later and go, what's that icon for? And then try it out. So.
Well,
if you click on File, if you go up to File, I think that, I guess I have to do it. I'm going, why don't somebody do that for me? You can exit right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or you can just close the window just like you would any other thing.
No log out or anything like that?
No. If I were to do that, it's going to ask me, do I really want to log out of the session? Okay, so, Miss Jeannie, what do we need to do at the end of the session?
Oh, we need to stop the recording, and we need to thank Stacy. Thank you so much, Stacy, our captioner, too.
Yes, Stacy, thank you very much, and hopefully I didn't talk too fast, because that's the other thing. And I will have to say that I have had some wonderful captioners in all the semesters that I've been teaching. It's just a matter of, don't forget about them and give them a break. And every once in a while, I'll forget, and the caption will say, are we taking a break soon? I'll get a little message in the chat box. So how do we stop that recording, Jeannie? You can do it from your computer.
Oh, I can even do it? No,
yeah.
I'm not.
Are you logged in?
I'm logged in as a participant here.
So,
I'm sorry.
So really simple, when we're going to stop the recording, we're going to stop the So if I wanted to resume the recording, I could do that. Okay. Pretty simple. You probably want to do that if you're going to take a break or something. Okay. All right.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend, and we hope to see you again next month to hear about rubrics, how to use them, and how to actually use them in Blackboard. So look forward to speaking with you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.